musical theme in the 2020s so far across most genres of music is the recycling of older sounds and the appreciation to music of the past that maybe didn't get the light of day that it should have. One of those genres is hard groove techno, which is really cool to see coming into play in 2026 now. Hard groove relies heavy on the rhythm and lots of percussive layers. The fast tempo, typically in the 130s to 140s, keeps the tempo flowing. With artists like Ben Sims, Mark Broom, and Truncate, those pioneers paved the way for the future sound of what we're now experiencing in 2026 with artists like Kedema, Mallgrab, XCLUB, and me and my friends and anyone else who's trying to make music like this. In this video, I'm going to break down how I made a track inspired by this XCLUB song right here. Without further ado, I'm going to just break down the project file to the track that you're hearing in the intro here. A modern, hard groove techno inspired track. What's up? It's Ant, and this is the Ableton session to the song you heard in the intro. It's coming out soon, but it'll probably be out by the time you're seeing this video. Check it out. I made this track with the intention of trying to break down hard groove techno in the style of XCLUB. I was going back and forth with this reference track. I'm going to show you the instruments of this track in the order that I added them while I was creating it, just to show you kind of where my headspace was at. So I started with the drums. I wanted to make sure I locked in a solid foundation first, because I knew ultimately I was going to be playing with like a dub chord kind of instrument and really trying to find pockets, but I needed the drums to be there first so I could find where the missing space was later on. I used this Dilby house kit in order to lay down drums a lot quicker. I was using a series of loops that I didn't listen to first. I just tossed them in Ableton in 3 different channels and they just magically meshed with each other. I got lucky with this one, honestly. I don't think it always sounds that good when you just take random loops and layer them together. When you use this live view instead of the arrangement view in Ableton, just pulling in a loop to a channel for some reason snaps it to the BPM, and that's really helpful. This trigger channel is a MIDI channel that doesn't play any audio, it just handles the sidechain. So for other percussion, I have a little conga playing some fills here. I use overdrive to bring out some of that extra flavor in the sound. It's like salt, you don't want to use too much of it. Got a little open hi-hat here now too. It's coming straight from a 909 kit. To even further control my sound, I have all it routed to an audio channel called the drum bus. Yeah, so that was where I was comfortable leaving the drums at, and I moved on to finding a groove with that dub chord sound that Ableton just nails with their stock sounds. Ever since I started making music in Ableton, I've been so drawn to these dub chord sounds. There's just, even just as a listener of music, this chord dub keys preset is awesome because just with the different velocities that you play the note at will give you a different sound, so you can really be creative with it, even though it's quite a universal sound. I got OTT and an EQ on this thing, just pushing the mid-range a little more. At this point, I added another dub chord preset from Ableton on another channel and just started messing around with kind of like a counter rhythm, counter melody vibe. The sound was so filtered that it really just offered a rhythmic bounce to the track. this point, my homie who was in the room while I was cooking up, my boy Colin, shout out to Colin, he sent me a bunch of sounds, including this vocals here that I was able to chop up. Colin and I then went through the process of manipulating these vocals further. First, we took it into an instrument rack and found a loop. Once we liked that loop, we took it even further and drowned it in some reverb and delays and chopped it up a little more minimally, and then made it loop every once in a while, and it was just a great little background atmospheric layer. This next idea I stole directly from the reference track. It's almost like what you'd hear a snare drum fill do, but I did it on a hi-hat. That's what they did in that track. I liked the vibe it brought, just kind of a little tickle. I just use that as an element that'll come on and off in the track here and there. I actually copy and pasted the MIDI over to the chord as an experiment, and I really liked how it sounded. I just changed the velocities on the notes a little bit. Things were sounding super groovy at this point, but I decided to add this M1 organ sound and see what I could get out of it. I was able to make this kind of beepy, echoey sound out of a little bit of overdrive and the echo effect. Just kind of messed with the filter on the echo effect, make it stand out. Everything was pretty much there in terms of musical elements, and the final element I added after I arranged the track in the other view of Ableton. So let's just go over there.
Why you gotta be complicated? Whoa. Why you gotta be complicated?
I found this acapella on YouTube, and I was able to pitch shift it and add some effects to it to make it suit the idea of the track that we're cooking up. I chopped it up similar to the vocal earlier, where I just loaded it into an instrument rack. I set different markers in the instrument rack to trigger the sample at different places, because I liked certain parts and others I didn't. And then from there I played it on my MIDI keyboard, and from there I was able to find a little pocket. In terms of sound design, I really just EQ'd the vocal a little further, and I also did a low pass filter during certain sections of the track just to keep the vocals out of the way. Helps the track breathe a little more when the vocals finally do come unfiltered. And then we got a little OTT at the end, and I'm just looking at that effect as a thing that makes a muddy sound feel a little more bright. Cool little automation thing I did here was mess with the cutoff on the dub chord, which makes that sound change and have more motion and movement to it. It gives it like a humanization feel, because that's kind of how DJs can manipulate a track when they're playing it live, or when someone's playing a synth live too. Here and there we have these transition upsweep sounds. I have them really low in volume. At certain drops, I also have these down sweeps. Another cool effect I added was these sirens that I recorded out of my window with the voice memos app on my phone and just airdropped it to my computer. I also have this instrument sound from Ableton called Rave Signal, building tension as this moment happens. It's the only part where the drums are really not playing. And then it goes right into this drum fill, which was just a piece of audio that I had from this Rio Leva 25K subscriber drum kit that I've had for years, since like 2022. Would he be mad if I shared that with y'all? It was a free kit anyhow. yeah, so I was done adding elements to this track and it was all formed out. I was ready to just pop this quasi-mastering channel strip on that I do and give it that final push to loudness. I love using these two flatline limiters to really push the sound and sculpt it. And then this Pultec EQ as well, really drive that low end. If you don't have these plugins but you want to mess around with a mastering chain, I have a stock Ableton mastering chain that I put together, so just hit me up in my email and I'll send that over to you. That's pretty much the breakdown. Thanks for sticking around to the end and let me know what you want to see next.